A crisis does not announce itself. It accelerates. It strips away normality in layers until only logistics and force remain. When systems fracture, the first entities to react are not civilians, but power structures, government units, military detachments, police, militias, criminal blocs, and spontaneous mobs. Each operates from the same instinct: secure control before the population realizes control is already gone. They target resources that define autonomy: water, food, medicine, weapons, and communications, because whoever controls these controls movement, compliance, and survival. The physics is simple. Scarcity creates pressure. Pressure collapses order. Under pressure, authorities abandon distribution for seizure because seizure is faster, unilateral, and eliminates competitors. Mobs follow identical patterns because crowd psychology mirrors predatory behavior. They swarm toward visible abundance and overwhelm the unprepared. Visibility becomes liability. Concentration becomes invitation. Possession becomes evidence against you. Civilian failure begins with assumption. They believe early collapse still functions like normal life. They expect information, negotiation, fairness. In reality, possession during the first hours marks you as a stabilizing node, and stabilizing nodes are threats to every faction seeking dominance. The governing rule is blunt. Anything that stabilizes you destabilizes them. Autonomy makes you a target. Every historical collapse confirms this. Martial law seizures, blockade rationing, communication blackouts, corridor confiscations. The pattern never changes. The first wave is always extraction. The only defense is invisibility. If they cannot see your assets, they cannot seize them. Water is always the first strategic asset seized because it governs biology, movement, and compliance. A human loses operational capacity in hours without it, and authorities understand this with clinical precision. When a crisis disrupts municipal flow, the power structure moves instantly to control every remaining source. Pumping stations, purification nodes, tanker routes, wells, reservoirs, even improvised collection points. They do not do this out of malice, but out of logistical logic. Controlling hydration controls population tempo. A dehydrated population cannot riot, migrate, or resist. A hydrated population can. That is why water becomes the earliest and most aggressively confiscated capability in every collapse. From sieges to drought-driven evacuations to martial law lockdowns during infrastructure failure, the seizure mechanism is systematic. First comes perimeter lockdown around known water nodes. Next comes ration issuance tied to identification or compliance. After that comes house-to-house inspection under the justification of public health stabilization. Any filtration tools, stored containers, high-capacity jugs, or purification chemicals are inventoried and absorbed into central authority. Mobs perform the same extraction but with less discipline, storming visible barrels, ripping open storage rooms, stripping parked vehicles, hunting for the sound of sloshing containers. Anything that appears like intentional water preparedness draws aggression because it signals you possess continuity when everyone else is breaking. To survive the first sweep, your water capability cannot read as capability. Large visible containers, uniform jugs, stackable barrels, and standard purification gear create patterns authorities recognize immediately. Effective concealment relies on fragmentation and disguise. Micro-capacity containers dispersed through non-threatening locations. Purification tools embedded inside unrelated objects. Slow-flow systems that do not advertise movement or volume. and environmental masking that makes water storage indistinguishable from ordinary household clutter. The goal is not to hide abundance. The goal is to erase the signal that you planned ahead. In collapse, water is power. Power invites seizure. You must ensure your water never looks like either. Food follows water in the hierarchy of seizures because calories control endurance, decision-making, and physical capability. When a population is fed, it can move, organize, and resist. When it is starving, it becomes predictable. That is why every collapsing system, whether governed by military command, emergency administration, or uncontrolled mob behavior, targets concentrated food stores within the first 72 hours. They do not need to inspect deeply. They scan for volume, density, and pattern. Stacked boxes, uniform buckets, sealed mylar, bulk grains, and visible shelves of dry goods signal pre-crisis readiness, which translates directly into operational independence. Independence is intolerable during the extraction phase. The psychology of scarcity amplifies the threat. Hunger reshapes cognition into tunnel behavior. Eyes search for bulk shapes, hands reach for anything bagged, boxed, or uniform. Crowds tear through apartments not for valuables, but for calories, because the biological urgency overrides rationality. Historical famines, siege accounts, and blackout-induced shortages all show identical behavior. People raid storage rooms before safes, pantries before bedrooms, and shelves before electronics. Armed groups behave similarly but with purpose. They seize food not just to consume, but to control. A community without calories will accept any authority that promises them. Concealing food requires eliminating the visual cues that trigger targeting. Large uniform quantities must disappear from sight. Fragmentation beats bulk. Dispersed microcaches integrated into non-food environments resist detection because searchers move fast and think in straight lines. High-calorie items hide best inside irregular containers, toolboxes, luggage, opaque bins, and mixed-content storage. Odor discipline matters as collapse deepens. Spices, dehydrated meats, and processed goods can betray volume when containers are breached. False scarcity is your shield. A kitchen that appears half empty and disorganized communicates struggle, not strength. A home that lacks visible bulk avoids escalation. Calories equal capability. Capability draws attention. Your objective is simple. Possess calories without projecting the pattern of someone who does. Communications are never an afterthought in a crisis. They are the first invisible asset hunted because whoever controls information controls tempo, territory, and perception. When infrastructure buckles, authorities pivot instantly towards signal suppression. They understand that an informed civilian becomes a coordinated civilian, and coordination is a threat. Radios, satellite messengers, encrypted devices, long-range antennas, even compact walkie systems, anything that enables independent communication becomes a target for seizure or forced registration. They do not need to justify it. They frame it as preventing misinformation, reducing panic, or maintaining operational security. The real motive is control of narratives and movement. History provides the blueprint. During blackouts, governments sweep frequencies and confiscate unauthorized transmitters. During martial law declarations, checkpoints search vehicles for radios. During civil unrest, spectrum jammers suppress civilian channels, while tactical units move house to house collecting communication gear. Even non-state actors follow the same pattern. Militias seize radios to prevent rival groups from coordinating. Mobs destroy communication equipment out of fear that someone could call reinforcements or warn neighbors. Information equals advantage, and advantage is intolerable during the unstable phase of collapse. To survive the sweep, your communication capability must not register as capability. Devices with antennas, chargers, solar panels, or protective cases create recognizable shapes that trained eyes spot instantly. Concealment begins with deconstruction, separating batteries, antennas, and bodies so nothing looks functional. Embedding components inside unrelated objects, toolboxes, cleaning supply bins, broken electronics, breaks the silhouette that searchers hunt for. Electromagnetic discipline is just as critical. A device that never emits cannot be triangulated. A device that stays dark until you move ensures you are not broadcasting your existence to anyone with a scanner. A hidden radio is not enough. Your behavior must also transmit silence. Do not let neighbors see you testing equipment. Do not run visible charging rigs. Do not generate patterns that suggest you expect communication failure. In collapse, the moment you appear prepared to talk when others cannot, every faction interprets you as either a spy or a rival center of control. Communication gives you reach. Reach makes you dangerous. Keep both invisible until the extraction wave has passed. Medicine becomes a primary seizure target because collapse transforms every injury and infection into a potential death spiral. Authorities understand this. Mobs sense it. Armed groups exploit it. When hospitals overflow or shut down, medical capability shifts from institutional to individual hands, and that is precisely when the extraction begins. Antibiotics, analgesics, clotting agents, sterile dressings, IV solutions, trauma kits, splints, inhalers, and surgical tools become strategic assets. Whoever holds them controls life expectancy. Whoever controls life expectancy controls obedience. The justification is always the same: public health stabilization. Under that banner, officials confiscate private medical stores to centralize distribution, even when distribution never materializes. Checkpoints ask about medications. Inspections search bathrooms and kitchens because civilians tend to store supplies in predictable places. Controlled substances escalate the threat profile instantly. Possession reads as hoarding or black market intent. Armed factions take a simpler approach. They raid anything labeled, boxed, sealed, or color-coded. They recognize medical packaging as quickly as they recognize ammunition boxes. Mobs behave with animal logic. They grab anything with a red cross, any bottle with English text, any container that looks like it came from a pharmacy. Concealing medical capability requires breaking every visual and behavioral pattern associated with preparedness. Uniform kits must be dismantled. Sterile supplies must be repackaged into mundane containers. Cosmetic jars, craft boxes, mismatched tins, and household organizers that do not read like medical caches. Medicines must be divided, separated, and embedded in multiple rooms so no single discovery reveals capacity. Labels must be removed or altered. Sharp disposal items must disappear entirely. Even the presence of too many bandages or gloves can attract suspicion. Your goal is to appear medically vulnerable. A home with minimal visible supplies does not trigger extraction. A home with organized trauma gear invites force. In collapse, medicine becomes a currency of survival and a magnet for violence. You must keep yours silent, scattered, and invisible. Weapons are never merely tools in a collapse. They are symbols of asymmetric power. That is why every authority, militia, and organized mob prioritizes weapon seizure before full societal breakdown becomes visible. They understand that once civilians retain the means to project force, compliance becomes optional. Firearms, blades, armor, night optics, reinforced tools, fuels, and improvised weapons all fall under the same category. Capability. Capability destabilizes control. During the early extraction phase, capability is treated as contraband. The seizure pattern is predictable. Governments initiate temporary disarmament measures framed as safety protocols. Checkpoints demand weapon declarations. Door-to-door sweeps target neighborhoods flagged for prior ownership. Ammunition becomes more valuable than rifles themselves because ammo indicates intent and longevity. Militias take a more primitive approach. They raid homes, vehicles, and workshops, stripping anything that resembles tactical utility. They focus not only on guns, but on accessories. Slings, optics, magazines, plate carriers, holsters, sheaths, even maintenance kits. Mobs behave with opportunistic aggression, grabbing any object that looks sharp, heavy, powered, or mechanically advantageous. A visible wrench, machete, crowbar, or fuel canister can escalate a search into a beating. To keep weapons during collapse, your environment must not signal readiness. Traditional storage, gun safes, lock boxes, organized racks broadcasts exactly what searchers want. Concealment requires disassembly and misdirection. A rifle broken into upper and lower halves hides easily among pipes, sports gear, or furniture materials. Ammunition scattered into inconspicuous containers avoids pattern recognition. Blades stored without sheaths look like household scrap. Armor plates embedded inside furniture or luggage disappear from visual inspection. Power tools must be dusted, dirtied, or mixed with non-functional items to appear abandoned rather than curated. Equally important is behavioral silence. A person who moves with confidence, maintains posture, or shows no fear attracts attention because they read as someone who is armed even if nothing is visible. During the extraction wave, you must project the opposite: fatigue, confusion, hesitation. Control your signal as strictly as you control your hardware. Weapons make you dangerous. Looking dangerous makes you a target. In collapse, survival depends on the paradox. Remain capable while appearing harmless. The 5 categories they seize first, water, food, communications, medicine, and weapons, are not random supplies. They are autonomy vectors. Each one extends your operational lifespan. Each one reduces your dependence on external authority. And that is the true reason extraction becomes inevitable. Collapse is not merely the breakdown of infrastructure. It is the breakdown of predictability. To reassert control, every faction moves to eliminate independent capability wherever it appears. They are not just taking resources. They are taking away options. A civilian with options is a variable. A variable is a threat. The connective principle behind every seizure is visibility. When an asset can be seen, recognized, or inferred, it becomes a target. Searchers do not need intelligence. They rely on pattern recognition, stacked food, uniform containers, medical labels, antennas, ammunition boxes, organized shelves, tactical silhouettes. The human brain, especially under stress, hunts for order. Anything too orderly reads as preparedness, and preparedness reads as resistance. The more a home resembles a stable node, the more violently extraction intensifies. That is the mathematics of survival under systemic pressure. Order attracts force. Disorder deflects it. But concealment is not just about hiding items. It is about breaking the information chain. During collapse, threats do not rely on deep inspection. They rely on speed. They move through buildings like a wave, scanning for patterns and reacting to signals. If the signal does not exist, they move on. That is your advantage. Life-saving assets survive not because they are buried deep, but because they never register as valuable in the first place. Invisibility is not achieved by strength, but by misdirection, fragmentation, and signal suppression. Your home must evolve from a storage site into an unreadable environment. Nothing should reveal your capabilities. Nothing should align into predictable categories. A space that looks chaotic, depleted, or unplanned sends a simple message: there is nothing here worth taking. In collapse, this illusion becomes armor. The more convincingly you remove yourself from the resource hierarchy, the less pressure falls on you. Survival is not determined by who has the most assets, but by who can keep their assets undetected while the world devours itself. Concealment is not a single tactic. It is an architecture, a full environmental redesign built to defeat the way human beings search under stress. In collapse, nobody performs meticulous inspections. They perform fast, aggressive, pattern-based sweeps. That is why your primary defense is not depth, but distortion. You must deny searchers the cognitive anchors they rely on: order, symmetry, categorization, and visible purpose. A home that reads as disorganized, depleted, or structurally unremarkable becomes low value within seconds. And seconds are all you ever receive. Begin by breaking visual continuity. No item should sit where it logically belongs. A pantry must not look like a pantry. A tool shelf must not resemble a workstation. Preparedness becomes invisible when every environment projects entropy rather than intention. Fragmentation reinforces this. Instead of centralizing supplies, you dissolve them into dozens of micro-locations. Inside hollow furniture, beneath dirty linens, within boxes of mixed junk, behind loose panels, or inside containers whose outward contents appear worthless. Searchers do not dig deeply into trash, clutter, or irregular objects. They seek recognizable shapes and uniformity. Remove uniformity and the search collapses. Layering strengthens the illusion. Decoy scarcity at the surface convinces the intruder before they invest effort. A nearly empty kitchen, a chaotic storage closet, a bathroom with only common items. These become psychological cues that extinguish suspicion. Behind those cues, deeper layers hold what keeps you alive, but never informs that resemble survival gear. Medical supplies tucked into cosmetic bags. Calorie-dense foods inside toolboxes. Water purification components hidden within cleaning supplies. Weapons disassembled and buried within unrelated materials. Communications gear scattered into dead electronics and mismatched containers. Every object must masquerade as something mundane. Behavior completes the system. Your speech, posture, routine, and visible possessions must reinforce the illusion of unpreparedness. Never appear calm, never appear confident, never move as if you expect to access hidden assets. Collapse punishes those who look ready. It ignores those who look broken. Your concealment architecture is not about protecting items. It is about controlling what others believe exists. When the world begins tearing itself apart, belief becomes the final line of defense. Survival in collapse is not a contest of strength, but a contest of invisibility. The world does not fall all at once. It fractures through predictable sequences: resource shock, authority panic, population desperation, extraction waves. In each stage, those who project capability draw pressure, and pressure destroys them. The 5 seized assets are simply expressions of a deeper truth. Anything that grants autonomy becomes a threat to the collapsing order, and threats are neutralized long before civilians recognize what is happening. Water, food, medicine, communications, and weapons do not disappear because you lacked enough of them. They disappear Because you allowed the world to see that you had them. The governing equation is simple. Visibility equals vulnerability. Concentration equals confiscation. Predictability equals exposure. Every historical collapse, whether born from war, famine, financial implosion, grid failure, or political fracture, follows the same mathematical pattern. Groups with visible resources lose them. Groups with visible strength are disarmed. Groups with visible preparation are targeted. Only those who mastered concealment, preserved operational capability long enough to navigate the transition from chaos to whatever comes after. Your task is not to outgun the crisis, it is to outlast the extraction. That requires discipline, misdirection, and the willingness to erase every outward sign of stability you possess. Let the world see nothing. Let the searchers find nothing. Let every faction believe you are as depleted as everyone else. Behind that illusion, your hidden assets continue to function while theirs burn out. Collapse does not reward the strongest. It rewards the unreadable.